about is transfers. There's two types of transfers, and everyone really it depends on the person who's lifting size and the size of the person you're lifting. You have to come up with your own way. I'm just going to basically provide you with some guidance to help protect your back and to help protect your loved one. I'm going to show you just a standard transfer, and then I'm going to show you an emergency type of transfer. I wouldn't try all of these unless you kind of have somebody to spot you. What I try to avoid is any pulling and lifting with arms, such as this, because arms may be too weak to be able to support that. I also don't want anything that's just going to have them collapse to the ground, and that can be stressful for both individuals. So really, if you want to get proficient at doing transfers, this is your mechanical assist, a gait belt, G-A-I-T belt. You take this belt by placing it around their waist. You're trying to go under the girth of the belly, or right tight at the hips, or if they have a peg tube, you're going to place it above here. But you do want it to be as tight as it can be, because you're going to be using this as your primary lifting mechanism. When you place it through the teeth first, and then you thread this back through. Once it's through the teeth, it gives you the bite that you need to be able to use it. The reason why we want to use the gait belt is because it allows us to act as a mechanical mechanism to lift from. We're now lifting from the center of their mass. When you're thinking about doing a lift, you want to be in a good posture. Hips are, your feet are hip width apart, you're in a good squat. You want to imagine that you're trying to sit in a chair, and how you're going to stand up is by standing up from that position. You're not going to be leaning over or leaning too far back. So the very first lift you want to do, if they want to hold on and they feel safer, they can, but be careful with this, as this may pull on your own neck. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. They can keep their hands here. You want to come underneath their arms. If they were to fall, we have this as a backup to be able to assist them. Now, put their feet into a good posture. And first of all, just going to do a stand, such that they would be ready to come into a standing posture. If their feet are too far underneath the chair, then they won't be able to stand up comfortably. So make sure their feet in a good position. So the lifting technique is I'm in a good squat. I am hugging and holding onto my belt. I'm hugging her close to me. Basically, we're coming to standing, and then if I need to take a step back, I can. If they are not successful, I can now use the belt to push them back down to a seated position. So if I take that same idea to a transfer, so now what I'm going to do is the exact same posture. Ideally, transfers don't have armrests in the way. That becomes a hassle. And what you're looking to do is just to do a quick slide over that we don't have to worry about landing on anything. Because of this here, it means that I do have to lift her up all the way and turn. Well, you're going to do the exact same technique, except that I may use my knees a little bit more to assist. You want to make sure that her feet are aligned to the position that she's heading into. So if she's going to be sitting in this chair, I want her feet to be rotated as if they're going into that next chair. That's our final position. So we don't have to do a ton of lifting with that. I now come in. I'm going to hug my knees to hers. So that becomes her support, so she can lock her knees against mine. This is called the, what I want you to, when you think about this, I want you to think of the head butt rule. Since her butt's coming over here, her head has to come over here. So I'm going to hug her on this side. I can see where I'm going. So now I can see where I'm going. I am asking her to lean forward. I'm going to lean back, lift her up, pivot, and take her back down. Granted, easier than it is in real life. That would be the ideal scenario. So you'll have to modify that to accommodate each individual's needs. But that's a general gist of it. The next one I want to show you is a little bit easier and can be a way to help move people more quickly. And I'm going to come back over to this chair for you. This emergency transfer, again, I want you to think of as a head-butt rule. And the reason why it's less effort is because I'm going to ask her, I'm going to hug her legs, her arms are crossed, her head comes down. In this maneuver, all I'm doing is leaning back and then pivoting her to the other chair. So I have the belt, I'm only holding her center of mass, I'm going to lift her up and rotate her into that chair. That requires very little lifting technique and can be a great way to move somebody quickly, or if there's a different weight differential. Just keep in mind their arms need to be inside. The breathing, you don't want to stay there long, but it can be a quick up into the next surface. Also, if you're going from high surface to low surface, or from high to low, that's easier than from low to high. But those are some general tips to help you with how to make your transfers a little bit easier. Last thing I want to go over for transfers, and none of these transfer techniques are right for everybody. You do have to accommodate to what's best for you. This is called a slide board. I like this technique because it really never has to go to standing. Some people can do this by themselves. For people who have strong upper body and weak lower body, this can be a great way to help you get from surface A to surface B. It can also just be a tool to help caregivers. Instead of having to come to a lift, it's just to slide across. It does require some skill and some technique though, so I would practice with somebody who is healthy to try to understand what it is. These come in 1,000 different types. They come with a sliding surface, grips here to be able to help you hold on. These are made by some Boy Scout stores, but there's also a grip here. So when you think about utilizing this device, again, it's very difficult when you have an armrest in the way, but we can make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the surface that we're heading to. You ask the individual to lean to one side, and you place the slide board underneath their buttocks. Okay, you really only have it under one. Then what we do is you're going to come back into a position where you are putting them with a head-butt rule. My head is on one side, my butt's going the other way. And now I'm just going to slide them, or I don't even have to do it all in one motion. Since I have a bridge now, I just use that bridge to help move them to the desired destination. This works well with cars sometimes. And then you can just pull the slide board out, except I have a sticky side. So that's another tool. Again, not for everybody, but it may be an option at some time. And for this video, we're going to go over how to help somebody roll in bed. Probably the simplest thing is to take a sheet, fold it in half. You're then going to place that on the bed. And the reason is we're going to use this as an assist for caregivers. So you would place this down on the mat. You would then have your loved one lay down. This would be somebody who is not able to walk, but just for example of showing. So what you want with the sheet that I just showed you is I now have the ability to take her center of mass, shoulders and hips, and be able to move them in different directions, okay? Just by sliding the whole individual. What we often do is we're moving a shoulder and then a hips, and then it often becomes quite cumbersome. So if I wanted to be able to help her out of bed, I could move her away from the bed toward the edge, bring her legs up, fold her arms across her chest so they don't get hurt. Now I'm going to grab my sheet, and just to make it easier, I'm just going to use that to help roll the individual. Okay, so that's one way to be able just to help them move in bed. Next, if we were to get out of bed, the best way is to then take the legs off so that we're using them as a fulcrum to help our weight pull her up. Come under the shoulder and then hand on the hip and pull them up to sitting